Hi guys, and welcome to my review or revisit to the ASTROTEC Vesna. This is the standard version. It's not the Pro version, which has a detachable cable. I've actually got the Pro version here as well, so I'll just show it to you quickly. So the Pro version, as you can see, detachable cable, and it's got this gold kind of back faceplate, while the non-removable cable's got like this kind of a bluish faceplate. Anyway, I decided to revisit the Vesna, the ASTROTEC Vesna, because I was left with somewhat of a sour taste in my mouth when I initially reviewed the Pro. And what do I mean by that? Well, very simply, I bought an initial set, and the moment I put it on, it was full of channel imbalances. I mean, really noticeable, mind you. One side had noticeably more bass than the other, and I was just overall disappointed. So I said, well, you know what, I'm just going to buy a second set and hopefully it will be better. And yes, in fact, it was better. The channel imbalance was almost gone. And look, at the end of the day, this is very simple. When we talk about the cheaper end products, the quality control is not as what we would have desired it to be. So I was just unlucky, and because I buy so many sets, I guess I am unlucky more often than most of us. Anyway, I bought the second Vesna Pro, and yes, the channel imbalance was practically non-existent, or basically acceptable. And I enjoyed it more than the first set, obviously, but it still wasn't an engaging set. It lacked a lot of things, in my opinion, especially when you consider it costs $30, and for $30, I'll take a Blonde 03 any day. The truth is this: there are certain sets at certain prices which will be always safe bets. The Blonde 03 is one of them. Whether we now hate it or don't hate it, or like it or don't like it, or it's not our ideal, the truth is, it is. And I mean, I've got a lot of sets. The consistency of the sets in terms of their sound is quite good, very good, if you consider thousands of them have been sold, and it plays well. So for $30, hey, it's a real no-brainer. And that was, I think, the main thing why I just thought that it wasn't a worthwhile set. Anyway, back and forth with ASTROTEC and so on and so forth, and I told them that I wasn't really too happy and so on and so forth, and I said, you know what, Akros, try the normal Vesna, give it a go. And I was like kind of hesitant, should I, shouldn't I? And you know what, I did. I bought it. This is the package, basically the same as the Pro. The irons come here. It's got a carrying case, some tips, simple affair, right? Really nothing. I mean, it's a case, it's a box, but I could not have been more pleased with the sound, and I'll show you just now in a second the graph of it. And look, the only thing I can say is this: whether this will be the case across other ASTROTEC Vesnas, that it will have the same kind of graph, that it will have the same kind of sound, or not, is something that I cannot guarantee. What I do know is that this set that I have in front of me plays really well. I was super pleased with the sound, and I cannot help myself but to recommend it, because for $20 to start with, it's a better option than the Pro, undeniably. I would take this over the Pro version of this any day. And compared to what I'm going to be comparing it to, it holds its ground. It holds its ground. What can I say about fit and isolation, so on and so forth? Well, it's a bullet style. It depends on the tips and on your ears if it's going to stay put or not. It doesn't. In my particular case, I don't really have any complaints. It's tiny. It's a really small IEM. I mean, just for the sake of comparison, this is a HD sound heart mirror, which is in itself a small IEM, and this thing, as you can see, is tiny. Comparing it to something else which is also known for being small, and it's the E2K, and here we go. I mean, this is basically the same size as an E2K, just a little bit thicker, so it's got an overall bigger diameter. That's the only real difference. In terms of the driver, it's a 6mm LCP driver, and as I was saying, the sound signature, the overall presentation really surprised me. I brought I brought the two go-to options in terms of this style of IEM, in my opinion. One is the now more tried and proven Tanchjim Tanya. I mean, you know, this thing has got a Harman tune signature, and it's a real wonder. I mean, you know, credit must be given when it's due, and Tanchjim did their homework with the Tanya. Fair enough, okay. We know that it has, you know, it has its flaws. You know, it's a signature which is based on a mid bass focus, so it's not got tons of sub bass. So don't go expecting rumble and stuff like that. The mids are good, but at the same time, they can occasionally come across as being overbearing or a little bit too much, you know. But no. If I'm really going to floor it in terms of its frequency response, it's probably in the treble. It's a little bit recessed, and you know, it just doesn't do cymbals. They're justice. Some female vocals just sound a little bit dull, and the overall technicalities like detail retrieval and imaging suffers slightly by the fact that it hasn't got that much treble extension. I mean, it's not bad, but it just doesn't have it. What it does have is a very organic type of a signature. It's very warm. It sounds really unfatiguing, and it scales like a beast. I mean, you give this thing power and it opens up completely. It becomes a totally different beast. You hook it up to your iPhone, or sorry, to your Android phone or whatever, and yeah, okay, you hook it up with a dongle, or you give it some serious power. Like I mean, I use my TK2, and it handles the TK2 like a boss. This is unreal. Period. That's it. End of question. It is deserving of being one of the references if you're looking for something around $20 like this. It is. Period. Okay. So I've got the Tanya. I've got something which is very unknown by the majority of people, which is a DQSM Hermit. And this again, unbelievable. This is more of a neutral bright kind of neutral. I'm not gonna say neutral bright. I want to say bright warm signature. It's definitely a V, but it's very tastefully done. It's very nicely done. In a minute, when I show you the graph, you will see what I mean. Bass is clean. It's fast. Again, it scales very nicely. It's got a great tonality, great timbre, just like on the Tanya. Mids are very open, and because of all the amount of treble that it's got up top, which, you know, for some might be too much, some might consider, oh, it's colored, or it's not realistic. Me personally, I think it's fantastic because I like the HD sound heart mirror, and I said that this was like a baby HD sound heart mirror. And let me tell you something, in certain occasions this thing can actually outdo a HD sound heart mirror. It can. Why? Because the bass that it has in stock format, so I'm not talking about a modified HD sound, I'm talking about an absolutely stock HD sound bass, and the bass that this has, it just matches the rest of the frequency better. So by matching it better than the HD sound sometimes is unable to do, it just conveys this nice sense of warmness and fullness and this sensation that this is a much bigger IEM than what it is. I mean, this is a 6.8mm driver, so it's tiny. I mean, these all have tiny drivers in them. 6mm for the ASTROTEC, 7mm for the Tanya, 6.8 for the Hermit. The EK2 has a 6mm driver. I mean, by all intents and purposes, the monster here is the HE sound, and I'm not really going to be comparing the HE sound. The HE sound and the E2K area for two other specific differences, or reasons rather. So this, in terms of its detail retrieval, is spectacular. It's the treble is polite. I never really found the treble to be sibilant, to be honest. It's polite enough not to be sibilant. It's clean, squeaky clean, loads of detail, gives a nice sense of soundstage, gives a nice sense of imaging. So I would say this is basically complementing the Tanya, okay? And that's why, in terms of my Rex, I wouldn't say that one is better than the other. I would say it just depends what is your preference in terms of sound, what type of music you like listening to. The Hermit or the Tanya are amazing sets to go for, okay? Period. So where does this stand? Well, this stands somewhere in the middle. Simple. It's that simple. It has not got the bass that either one of those two has. Neither does it have the treble that either one of those two has. Well, it's got more treble than the Tanya, less treble than the Hermit. But the overall flatness, and when I mean flatness, I mean this thing maintains itself within like a 5 dB window, all the way up to about 5-6K. And that in itself is, in my opinion, pretty spectacular. I mean, we're talking MIM Dark Magician kind of magic here. Again, I want to repeat this. Was it just a fluke? Did I just get a set, or is this the case with regards to the fixed wired version of the Vesna? I don't know. I might get another set just for the sake of confirming that or not. But what I do know is it is really good. I mean, really, really good. Let me just put up the graph here so you guys can see what I'm trying to tell you and convey to you. Anyway, guys, here we go. Okay, so red line, Tanchjim Tanya, as you can see, it's got that nice mid-bass bump there. Starts rolling off from about 40 hertz down, rolls off 45 hertz, starts rolling off. Nice pin again, peaking at 3K, and then starts going down again, slowly. And then, although it shows all of that info up top there, it just it doesn't have that information up top. It just doesn't. There's less treble than what the graph would lead us to believe. Okay. Orange line, DQSM Hermit. As you can see, very similar bass curve, not as pronounced in the mid bass, so a little bit flatter, but very much following the curve of the Tanya. The same kind of pin again, and the same kind of initial peak at 3K. It goes down, and then it goes up again at around 7, and then carries on through. You would think that peak there at 7 would bring forward some aggressiveness, and like I said, no, nothing. Honestly, I didn't perceive it that way in any of the songs that I listened to. Very polite, very well mannered, and for me, an absolute beast in terms of detail. What it can do in terms of detail, and it needs to be listened to. And then finally, today's reason of being, the green line, which is the Vesna. And as you can see, that is flat in my books. That is pretty flat. I mean, from down low all the way up to about 5K, that thing maintains itself there within 4 dBs even, I would say. So that's flat. And then it has that little peak, boost, peaking at around 8-9K or something like that, and then it goes down. That's it. This is another one of those perfect examples that a graph does not really show how good or how bad an IM is in many cases. And by looking at this graph, you would, okay, let's see, and it is so much fun to listen to the Hermit. Sorry, to the Vesna. It is so much fun. It just, the first thing that really jumps to you is how open and clean the sound is. Okay, and it has more space than what you would be led to believe by the graph. Plenty of of treble, plenty more than the Tanya, way more than the Tanya. You notice that, and then if I am, let's say, gonna fault it, which is a strong word, is that because it does not have. Let me show you again. Sorry, because it. Oops. There we go. Because you can markedly see that it doesn't have the same kind of bass as the other two. We're talking like a difference of 4 dBs here. It can sound sometimes thin, and what suffers with that? Some male vocals will suffer from that. Gregory Porter's voice just sounds a little bit thinner than what I personally would like. The tonality and the timbre of some instruments just comes across a little bit thin as well. But overall, the truth is this: those are faults which I am more than willing to accept and to live with. And there's enough quality, enough good points, or enough good things in the Vesna for me to say that this is now an alternative to the Tanya and to the Hermit. This is now a third choice in this crowded market that you also have in terms of these IMs at this price. I brought out the HD sound simply because, like I said, it is very much the big brother of the Hermit. And so those of you that have the HD sound, if you are thinking about a Hermit, you definitely will now have an idea that yes, if you like this, you will like the Hermit. Trust me. The reason for the E2K, well, the E2K is slightly more expensive. I mean, this is already $30, so it's a little bit more expensive. By by comparison to the actual Vesna, it's flimsy and but. Look, I guess it has its followers. I guess it has its people that like what it's about, and I like it. I don't dislike the E2K, and I also got an E3K. I just feel that for the price that it has, it doesn't offer anything above or beyond a Tanya. It's got a very similar sound to a Tanya, perhaps a little bit more of high frequency, but it has a very similar sound to the Tanya, perhaps a slightly more neutral mid-range as compared to the Tanya. As compared to the DQSM, I think it just, yes, it's probably more correct, but it's not as engaging as the DQSM. And compared to our star of today, it can be a little bit warmer. It can have that sense of organic, or give that sense of organicness. I don't know if I'm using the correct terminology to music that perhaps the Vesna will not be able to do as well because it's a little bit thinner. But overall, I still find that the Vesna, for me, makes more sense. It just it's the neutrality that it has is very very engaging. It's very, like, you don't expect it when you listen to it. If you don't graph it and you listen to this, the last thing you would say is that it's as neutral or as flat as you see in the graph, because it just doesn't sound like that. And then when you look at it, you say, wow, you know what, this is actually been well tuned. And it is a very well tuned little IM that, as I said just a few minutes ago, and I'll repeat, definitely a wreck in my book. And just to reiterate that fact, it's not a winner or a loser with regards to the Hermit or to the Tanya. It's just a different alternative in terms of sound signature and what you you know, might overall enjoy. If I am going to try and be you know, position things a little bit better, I would say that the more well, the more V type signature is definitely this one here, although I wouldn't consider it to be a V in the traditional sense, because it has got very good mids. The Harman tuned one, yeah, is definitely this one. And this is a neutral set, let's put it that way, that is capable of being kind of a Jekyll and Hyde thing. It's capable of having very good detailed retrieval and really being technically very capable, like the Hermit is at points, but also capable of being quite close in terms of its organicness as the Tanya is. And yeah, guys, that's basically it. So there we go. Worthwhile having revisited the ASTROTEC. Definitely wreck it. Have a look at it. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.